muted.
Thank you. So yeah, as I said, I'm talking about marine litter in Iceland, and for a long time, Iceland and all of the other countries have been living by a so-called, there's a so-called proverb in Iceland which means long takes the sea, or the sea accepts things for a long time. I'm not daring to say it in Icelandic because my Icelandic pronunciation is really bad. But Iceland has basically been thinking that what gets thrown away, which is out of sight, is out of mind. So 18 years ago, Iceland had a program of action that it implemented, and there it said that the marine litter problem in Iceland is not that big of a deal. So obviously, fast forward to now, we can see that there's a lot of marine litter all around the globe, and I personally was really surprised by the amount of marine litter that you can see in Iceland itself. So because of this marine litter problem, Iceland implemented a program of action, which is called Made Out of Plastic, loosely translated. And in this policy, in action number 17, it said that it will clean up the Icelandic beaches in the next 5 years, which is until next year. And it's basically a project and funding that is run by the Ministry of Environment and the Environmental Agency of Iceland. And in this project, different organizations get funding for conducting beach cleanups. And as we heard before, and as we can see from my example, Ocean Missions is one of these organizations. And we're being paid an amount of money by the Icelandic government to conduct beach cleanups. Because obviously beach cleanups are not cheap. You will have to pay for the gas, for the transport, for the recycling of the marine litter items that we can find. So what are we doing? Well, beach cleanups, we're going to beaches and we're going to remove all of the marine litter that is on the beaches. And as you can see here, there's a lot of marine litter, especially fisheries related. So we find a lot of fishing nets and so on. And what do we do with this marine litter afterwards? Well, we collect it, obviously, then we sort it. We sort it by items and by material category in order to then recycle it properly, because obviously it's not enough to just, take it all and throw it all away, because one of the major problems in marine litter mitigation and reduction is also that the waste management should be properly handled. Because if we don't properly recycle, we basically just feed into the problem. It's not enough to just tackle the symptom of marine litter. It's important to tackle it from the very source, and the very source is the creation of waste in the first place. So what you can see here is some of the most common items that we can find in Iceland. You can see here there's a lot of shotgun cartridges. We find a lot of buoys. We find lollipop sticks and bottles and so on. And so why do we exactly sort them exactly like this? Well, there's something called the OSPAR guideline. OSPAR is the protection of the Northeast Atlantic marine environment, and they basically introduced a guideline for collecting marine litter and cleaning up the beaches around the area. And we don't necessarily have to do it because the OSPAR guidelines are mostly for the countries itself to conduct beach cleanups in order to then report it to OSPAR and to then come up with some reports to see how the marine litter problem is. And we as Ocean Missions basically just use these guidelines, and on the left-hand side you can see some of the... can you see the mouse? I don't know. On the left-hand side you can see the protocol, the guideline. Basically, it has around 150 items split into different categories. So we have plastic, we have cardboard, and so on. And from this we can then see how the composition is of marine litter in Iceland. So on the left side on the graph you can see most of the plastic is made out of, most of the litter is made out of plastic. So it's 83%, which is basically in line with how it is globally. And on the right side you can see, well, 24% of the items that we can identify is from fishing gear. That doesn't mean that it's just 24% in Iceland, because 58% are plastic pieces, but there's a lot of tiny plastic pieces that we can't identify. We don't know where it's coming from. We don't know whether it's from buckets, whether it's from bottles or so on, because they've been already broken down into so many small pieces. And just to give a quick recap, we've been doing these beach cleanups since 2019, and obviously with more people joining, like Carlotta and me, we've been able to do more and more beach cleanups. So last year we did 69 beach cleanups, and the weight is a bit less than in the last years, but that's only because we're missing a lot of kilograms from a certain area in Iceland. And it is Langanes, because we're doing yearly cleanups in Langanes, which is a peninsula in the northeast of Iceland. And Langanes is quite remote, and it is also quite affected by marine litter for the current situation there. And as you can see there, we have a lot of fishing nets, we have a lot of buoys, we have a lot of plastic pieces that we can't identify where it's coming from. And it takes a lot of effort to just clean them up. So we're not able to use the OSPAR guidelines for this. We're basically just weighing the amount of kilograms that we can find, and it's a couple of thousand. And that's just on a couple of 100-meter strips of beach. So we're not even able to clean the whole of the peninsula. It's quite big. And every year we come back, it seems like the litter is just back. It seems like we have never cleaned anything there, which is quite sad. So we would need a lot of manpower, which is a huge problem in Iceland. And we would need a lot of time in order to just clean this tiny peninsula. But this is, I mostly want to talk about the Akureyri Beach Cleanup Network that we introduced last year, because I'm the beach cleanup coordinator in this area now. And what we're doing is we basically just clean Eyjafjörður. And we have a lot of participants, mostly from the university, mostly international students that joined us last year. We basically go once or twice a week with 1 or 2 cars. That means we have like 10 people joining in the beach cleanups. And then, yeah, we just clean the beaches as friends. And you can see here on the map which beaches we have cleaned. And the ones in red are actually the ones that are the most polluted in Eyjafjörður, and also the ones that we weren't even able to completely clean. The one in Akureyri is at the gas station, and the gas station beach is quite polluted because of all the trash that gets thrown away there. There's not really any bins or something, so people who buy something at a gas station just throw it away, then the wind picks it up, it goes into the sea, it comes back onto the beach. There's a lot of cigarette butts. We normally don't find that many cigarette butts in Iceland, on the Icelandic beaches, but there we found over 100. Then we move on to the one on the right, the red one. That's a beach where there's a lot of driftwood and a lot of rocks, and we were taking like 3 hours to clean it. And it's still not done because there was a car crash there, and there's also a lot of styrofoam there. And styrofoam, as we know, breaks down into smaller pieces, so it's really hard to clean it all. And we just didn't have enough bags as well to clean all of the trash that is there. And it's the same with the Áskursanda beach. Sorry for my pronunciation if that's wrong. There's a lot of driftwood there as well. There's a lot of rocks. So the trash just doesn't go back into the sea when there's a storm, so it's just basically stays there the whole time. And yeah, we found a lot of plastic pieces there, couldn't clean it all. So yeah, what did we find in Eyjafjörður? Well, it basically looks exactly the same as in overall Iceland. 83% is made out of plastic. And then we look at the likely sources of marine litter, and we can see the black part is unidentifiable. It's really hard, as I said, especially for plastic pieces that are broken down, to identify where it's coming from. Then, as I said before, we have 29% of styrofoam. And I heard from a friend, but I couldn't find any information on this, which is quite a big problem in Iceland, obviously, that there apparently was a styrofoam spill a couple of years ago. And so it makes sense that there's a lot of styrofoam on all of the beaches. There's not a single beach in Eyjafjörður where we didn't find styrofoam. But there's a lot of beaches in Húsavík and in the other areas that we clean where we didn't find any styrofoam. So it must come from a spill or an accident. Then we have farmland usage and land usage, which basically also includes the shotgun cartridges that we can find. We have some litter from construction sites, especially where the construction sites are. Obviously, fisheries-related items are actually not as many in Eyjafjörður, but that makes sense because obviously the further out you go into the open ocean, the more fisheries-related items can be found because of the currents and because obviously it's connected to the high sea and the ocean, so we don't know whether all of the trash that we can actually find in around Iceland is even coming from Icelandic misuse of waste or from Icelandic vessels or even from other vessels and other countries. And just to give a broad overview over the most common items, obviously, as I said before, styrofoam is the biggest contributor. Then we have plastic pieces between 2.5 and 50 centimeters, glass shards, a lot of plastic packaging from sweet and lolly sticks and so on, and cigarette butts, but that was basically really just on one beach. So what are the problems in Eyjafjörður? I guess it can also just be said it's a problem in Iceland in general. So we have 2 beaches where there's car crashes there, and with car crashes it's quite hard to remove all of the litter because some of the trash that we can find was quite small and quite dusty, so it's really hard to pick it up. And we also decided not to pick all of it up because we didn't have any masks or something, so we didn't want to inhale all of the dust that came off. Then in the middle you can see me climbing up the beach, which is actually just across from Akurey. I don't know whether anyone here has been to the beach. It's quite hard to remove the trash. It's nice enough to find it and maybe collect it on a pile, but if you can't remove the litter from the beach because you don't have the manpower, you don't have the strength, or it's just inaccessible, that's also a huge problem in Iceland, just as much as it is to even identify properly where the beaches are in Iceland. And to just quickly sum it up, because I believe I'm running out of time, to give an outlook to the marine litter problem in Iceland, there are certain laws that have been introduced, regulations concerning single-use plastics and concerning the regulations on dumping and on disposal of not really marine litter, but just polluting activities. But the problem in Iceland and also the problem worldwide is that marine litter per se hasn't really been addressed. It's been added to different conventions, but what Iceland needs to be doing especially is to just focus in its policy action plans on marine litter as a problem and not just on the symptoms of, okay, like action 17 of the action plan that I said is saying that it needs to clean the Icelandic beaches. But that's it. It gives funding to organizations to clean the Icelandic beaches, but beyond that, there's nothing really done. There's no support in contacting landowners or in knowing how to get to the beaches, and there's also not a real clear goal on how fast these beaches should be cleaned and giving manpower. And obviously one of the biggest things is also just the awareness raising. So I hope with these kind of talks we can contribute to shining light on the problem in Iceland, because I know that some of the people that joined our beach cleanups, they were quite surprised that it's so trashy on the beaches. I was surprised myself, and if nobody knows how bad the situation is in Iceland, how are you supposed to work on this problem? And so with that being said, I just want to thank you all for listening in, and I mostly want to thank the people that have been so committed to cleaning these Icelandic beaches and that have been joining, and we hopefully start in May again to clean the Akurey beaches, and maybe someone wants to join here. So thank you so much.